Hey guys, this is Naveen here. Welcome back to Naveen Automation Labs. A quick video on 6 steps to master in test automation. Today, I'll tell you what are the most important things that you have to learn in if you really want to get mastery in test automation. This is what you have to learn. I see a pattern. People are unnecessarily focusing on each and every testing tool. I want to learn this also. I want to learn that also. You should not learn about each and every tool. You should not learn unnecessary things. You should not focus on which are not there and demanding in the market. You should not learn those things which is not going to helpful, which is not going to help you also in your career. It should not be done which is unnecessary hype. This is there in the market and unnecessary hype on social media. You should not focus on those things. Please improve your core skills. Core skills, very, very important. Either you are learning coding, programming, test automation, testing tool, or unit testing framework, or TDD, BDD, whatever that you are learning, the basic core fundamentals are very, very much required here. When I take interviews, when I talk to people, and when I see that, okay, your core automation skills, your core basic fundamentals are really, really bad, then how will you work on different tools and technologies? Tomorrow, people are expecting a lot from you in terms of designing, component, system design, and everything. And then you are really poor in these basic fundamentals. You're just running behind unnecessary those AI, chat GPT, where those are not proven things also in the market with respect to testing and test automation. Then why are you unnecessarily wasting your time? Right. So I thought, please master, if you really want to master in test automation, these are the 6 most important steps that you have to follow. First of all, focus on the core frameworks over tools. Tools you can learn easily. Any tool which is there in the market, Selenium, Cypress, Playwright, or XYZ tool which is there in the market, you can easily learn it. But the core fundamentals, the core framework design and everything, that is what very important here. For example, if you really want to learn any tool, let's see, for example, Selenium WebDriver, you have to improve your programming. For example, Java, Python, C Sharp, Ruby, right? If you really want to work with Cypress and Playwright, you have to work with JavaScript or TypeScript. I see people are directly working in the Cypress and the Playwright, but they have no idea about how to write a basic simple function or develop a logic with in JavaScript or TypeScript because they are not comfortable with that. They have just simple memorized some basic methods and the commands that which are that you're going to use in Cypress and Playwright. They're just using it. Dot fill, dot send keys, dot click, and this and that. But if I ask you that, okay, no, develop a logic, write a simple component logic for that, then they are not able to do it properly. This is where the confidence lacks. You can easily learn the tools. That's not an issue. Before learning the tool, that you have to improve your basic fundamentals. So core framework knowledge about what exactly the design pattern, what are the different strategies that we have to follow, what do you mean by test data management, and then how exactly different patterns that I can use it to design the test cases and the framework components over the tools, because tool is very limited, specific to the specific task. Either it is UI automation, mobile automation, or API automation, or security testing, or performance testing. But the basic fundamentals behind that engineering, that matters a lot here, right? So that's why, as per your need, focus on these essential frameworks deeply. First of all, improve your unit testing. Unit testing is not about only for the developers, they are going to write it, but you have to improve and learn about what are the different libraries which are there in the market. You are really poor in JUnit and TestNG or PyTest or NUnit, but you are really good in Selenium, then what is the use of that? So please try to look into how exactly we can write the unit test cases and how exactly unit test cases can or unit testing tools can be used in the core automation framework, and then integration with these kind of tools like UI, mobile, and API automation. For API testing, I would still focus on the RestAssured and the Postman. These are the two deadly combination which is there in the market for API testing. Along with that, you can add some other supplement tools also, but RestAssured is very, very much demanding because it's a very popular DSL library and very, very good community support, just like we have for Selenium. And the Postman is doing amazingly great. In fact, you can design the framework also in the Postman with the JavaScript. You can write the code as well. If you talk about the UI testing, market leaders Selenium WebDriver, Cypress, and the Playwright. Selenium WebDriver is amazingly great from last 20 years, and it will be there for next 10 years also for sure. Cypress and the Playwright also, they are slowly and getting the hype and getting the market demand also in the market. But if you have, let's say you are interested in Cypress and the Playwright, please focus on these fundamental tools which are there in the market. Don't try to learn unnecessary things, unnecessary tools, and new fancy tool which is there in the market, not even proven also. Nobody knows about that as well. And then you're spending your time on those things. Please don't do that. And please don't start writing the prompt directly on the chat GPT when you are trying to learn about the WebDriver, Cypress, and Playwright, or RestAssured, or something like that. You are very, very new. I'm talking about those people who are very new in these kind of tools, and then they have no idea how exactly things are working internally. And then when you write the simple line of code also, let's say in Selenium, you should know the fundamental behind that particular line. If I'm writing driver equal to new Chrome driver, what kind of Java concept, on what basis, what logic that they have written internally, so that this particular Chrome browser is getting launched or getting initialized. What is the reason behind that? Why we are not able to create the object of WebDriver? Because there is a fundamental of coding, and the programming and the object oriented programming is applied. So that's why we are writing the code like this. Please don't try to memorize the code. This is very, very important here, right? People just follow the simple pattern. Okay, yeah, this is what we write. But the moment you ask the cross questions about that particular line, they are totally blank. They have no idea, or they have very partial information or fundamental behind that, right? Same thing for the mobile testing also. APM, learn about the XUI test for the iOS automation, Espresso. I'm talking about that for every specific domain. For example, API, UI, and mobile and performance. Please try to learn at least one or two different tools. That is more than enough. Same thing for mobile testing, as I told you, and the performance testing. K6, Gatling, JMeter, very, very popular. K6 these days very getting popular because of the JavaScript support. You can easily integrate with the Playwright and the Cypress along with the UI and the performance testing. You can do it together if you are really want to do that. Gatling, they directly started supporting with the Java also, plus JavaScript also they have started, and the JMeter is a universal tool. Other than that, please don't try to focus on unnecessary tool for the performance testing and the performance engineering here. Then the create a foundation of key test automation concept. Try to learn about what do you mean by test pyramid fundamentals. Don't focus on end-to-end test cases, on UI test cases 90%, 100%. People, they don't focus what exactly is happening in the background, in the backend, right? They ignore writing the unit test cases. Let's see, developers are not writing the unit test cases. Only let's see 30-40% unit test cases that they have written. So definitely you are going to face the issues on the UI application or the web application or your mobile applications, because the developer has not tested the code properly. They have not written the unit test cases properly, or maybe the unit test cases are not getting executed and then getting passed also. And after that also they are releasing the build, and you are testing on the client side, on the browser side, on the UI side, and definitely you are going to get n number of bugs over there. So if you are doing the automation, you think about on the top of the pyramid, on top of the cone, then in that case you are putting 90 80 90% efforts on the UI automation, but your basic fundamental is absolutely wrong. How good looking you are, right? That does not matter. But internal health is not good, your internal system is not working properly, then you will not be able to survive much. Same thing with the automation also, that please focus 70%, 80% on the unit test cases. Integration testing, like API testing, that you are doing it, you're calling the endpoints, you're calling your REST APIs or GraphQL APIs, or integration test cases that you are writing it, 20%, 30% focus on the integration API, and whatever the last 10-15% which is left, then you try to automate around 10 to 15% for the end-to-end test cases, means for the UI test cases, right? If these two things are absolutely working fine, then definitely it will work fine here as well, like cross-browser testing or UI automation with Selenium or Cypress or Playwright, that you really want to do that. But please try to focus on the API automation as well, and please talk to your developers that please write and improve the coverage for the unit test cases as well here. Then different test design patterns, like for example, first and triple A pattern. First means fast, isolated, repeatable, self-validating, timely. Triple A pattern means arrange, act, assert. How to write the test cases, what exactly the industry standard, like first triple A pattern. How exactly you have to write the independent, isolated test cases. How exactly you have to follow the triple A arrange, access, assert pattern. What do you mean by soft assertion? What do you mean by hard assertion? Why we should not write n number of assertions inside the single test method? This is a bad design pattern that you are using it for writing the test cases. So please start using, learn about the test design patterns. some typical other page object model design patterns for the UI automation, test data management, test environment management. How exactly you are preparing the test data for your automation. This is a very critical part, because when you prepare the test data, it is working fine. But when you run the test cases or user is using your application on the production, that time with that particular test data, the application is not working properly. It means that application data which is getting used in production, you have to use the same thing in your test automation as well, or similar kind of data that you have to prepare. You should not hard code. You have to provide dynamic data. You have to maintain the data in some external source, or maybe some CSV file or JSON file or XML or Excel file or whatever. But how exactly you're going to manage that particular data, that plays a very important role here. I see number of frameworks where people are just putting the hard coded value directly in the script, in the component level, at the component level, and then today it's working fine, tomorrow there is no guarantee that it is working fine or not. For example, let's see, if you really want to automate some CRUD operations, create, retrieve, update, and delete, either in API or in the UI automation, it means you have to fill the form, click on submit, and then check that the user is really created or not. After that, you have to update the user. After that, you have to fetch the user information, and after that, you have to delete that information also. How will you write the automation for these kind of scenarios? Right. So where the testing automation fundamental comes into the picture, the design patterns, the test design patterns come into the picture. These patterns like arrange, act, assert, or first, all these patterns will come into the picture. So please try to learn, try to Google these kind of things, or search it on my channel also, or maybe other resources also. Try to learn about these fundamental things over here. Then master in each testing level. For example, unit testing. If you're not able to do that, please ask your developers that are they really covering the proper unit testing or not, or proper unit test cases they are covering or not. Try to learn about the mocking, stubbing, mocks, fakes, create the fake APIs through the mocking services, maybe WireMock or Mockito. You should know about how to perform the integration testing with the mock services. Right, today application is working fine, and then you have created one component, and this component has to integrate, or let's see, communicate with this particular component. Let's see, this is a consumer and this is a producer, but right now this producer is not working, so I have to create a fake mock here so that this can be interacted with each other. And once the actual mock is available, or once the actual service is available, then they will communicate with each other properly. So this is what you have to create: the mock, the fake server, the fake response that you have to create it for end-to-end test cases, and for the integration test cases that you have to develop here. So that is what the mocking, stubbing, fakes, mocks, these are very, very important here. Dependency injection, code coverage matrix, integration testing, API testing patterns are very, very important. Try to learn about how to get the code coverage matrix. For example, static analysis or risk analysis, or let's see, for example, that what other different vulnerabilities or bug smells are there. Code coverage tools which are there in the market, like SonarQube or Jacoco. These kind of tools you can easily integrate with your automation core framework, and then you will get to know about, what is the code coverage, what is the static analysis. In fact, you can do the code coverage for the developers also. Quality is not about only your responsibility or dev responsibility. The code quality also, you can look into it as a QA guy, right? So try to look into that thing, how exactly the code is developed, what are the different things which are not covered, what is the design pattern, what are the coding patterns, optimized code or not, hard coded values or not, they have written properly or not, right? The proper documentation, everything, you have to check it in the code. So code coverage matrix, there are n number of tools which are there in the market. Please start to learn those tools as well. Integration testing, that we have already talked about. API testing patterns, like how will you automate different types of APIs, authenticated APIs, or CRUD APIs, or GraphQL, or HTTP based APIs which are available in the in your project. How exactly you are going to automate that without authentication, with authentication, OAuth 1.0, 2.0 security analysis that you have to do it for your API. So you should know about that, how to automate those test cases, and what are the different testing patterns for APIs that we are going to use it. Same thing, microservices, contract testing. Also, you have to look into it, that which tool that we are going to use. Maybe packed. What do you mean by contract? What do you mean by schema testing? What if the schema is not working? Then what are the different types of bugs that we have to raise? And how to perform the component level microservices testing. N number of services which are running and communicating with the database. and then how exactly we can test it. Because see what happens, n number of microservices are running in the background, and on top of that we have only, let's see, very few endpoints are there. So we stop the testing up to here, that we just simple test, okay, call this particular API with the one endpoint, and then it's getting the response. But this API is communicating with these number of services. So I'm talking about one layer deeper, that how to check all these mocks. I mean, how to check all these microservices which are communicating with my database, and what if this microservice is not working? What is the response of this particular microservice, right? So how to check that? The individual services, contract testing. What if the contract testing schema is not working properly? What are different kind of testing and then bugs that we have to raise it over here, right? So please try to look into these things. Today I'm just covering only high level points that I'm telling you. It's your responsibility to check each and every point for next 2 3 months and improve your knowledge about all these topics that I'm going to cover here. Then about the UI automation patterns, what are different design patterns that you are going to use it, right? What kind of approach that you are going to use it, cross browser testing, how to perform that, what are the limitations, what are the different things that we have to take care about it. Same thing for mobile testing automation also. In terms of mobile testing, iOS testing is slightly different, Android testing is slightly different. Which one is the best tool that we have to use it for that, and then what are the limitations and then scenarios that we have to cover that, right? So mobile testing is also a different types of test automation area, where you have to focus on the device testing. Either it is an emulator, simulator, or physical device, or device form, or browser stack, or lambda test. Do we need to create our own testing labs over here? What are the different factors that we have to consider for 5 devices if we really want to run in the parallel mode and all those things? What will be my strategy to run on the iOS together along with the Android in my on-premises setup that I have to do it, or maybe on the cloud that we have to go, or maybe some third-party vendor like Browser Stack or Lambda Test we have to pick. So you have to think in that area, right? What are the different fundamentals for mobile testing point of view that we have to follow here? Same thing for the parallel execution. Every tool having certain limitations with respect to parallel execution. How to overcome with those tools? What do you mean by multi-threading over here? For example, if you're using the testng multi-threading along with the thread group, how exactly I can run my test cases at the test level, class level, method level, in fact, test data level also with respect to data provider. I can run my test cases in the parallel mode. How exactly these things are working? And the same thing is working in Playwright or Cypress in a different way. So you have to look into those areas, because parallel execution is the very, very important factor for the execution point of view, to save the time, plus give the results quickly instead of giving the result after 3 4 hours. When you're running the test cases in the parallel mode, you are getting the result within 60 to 90 minutes only, right? So think about in these testing different levels that we are performing it. Okay. After that, learn about the modern development practices. It's not about only, yes, the code is done, it's in my Eclipse, and then done. I'm right click on it and run as Java application, run with Python or whatever. It's working fine in your local. But the most important thing is, guys, that you have to integrate with the main pipeline, with the main CI/CD pipeline. This is what very, very important. If your code is not integrated, or your automation framework test suite that you have written is not integrated with the main CI/CD pipeline, then what is the use of that? If your code is only in your Eclipse, in your local, in your laptop, this is just the code. That's it. It's no contributing. You are not leveraging your automation. You are not running it on a daily basis. You are not helping in the main pipeline. You are not integrated with the release process. You are not integrated whenever the execution is happening, that you have to trigger your test cases. If it is, you are not contributing in that area, then what is the use of that? So in the modern development practices like CI/CD processes, make sure that you are aware of your project CI/CD. How exactly we can use a Jenkins pipeline, GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, Circle CI, right? And then how exactly I can integrate my automation test cases or API test cases or UI or performance test cases in these pipelines, where exactly I have to fit my stage in these pipelines. So you should know about, right? So test automation in agile in a slightly different way, is sprint wise cycle that we have to follow. That shift left testing, which is a very popular term these days, that before the production, that we have to test everything, and then while doing the development itself, that most of the testing activities we are moving towards the lower side or left side. So what are the different testing techniques that we have to follow, or what are different practices that we have to follow? Please try to learn about the shift left testing, especially in the agile and the CI/CD. Then people are not aware of what do you mean by test driven development, what do you mean by BDD, behavioral driven development, agile methodologies or test driven methodologies that we have to follow here. What do you mean by TDD development? Right, on the basis of the test cases I'm going to drive my development. Same thing can be applied in the automation also. First I define the scenario. Okay, this is what I really want to automate. So I'll start from the test level. Then after that, to test this, I have to call one, let's see, one method over here. Now to improve this particular method, I have to call another method, then another method. So likewise, component, I'll keep creating it to make sure that this particular test that I have written, it's working fine or not. So I'll keep running my test cases and keep checking what is the result of that test. And then I keep refactoring my a component and the code so that this particular test will be in the green color. It's working fine or not. So that is called test-driven development approach. That first you define your test, and then on the basis of that, keep driving your development, keep writing your code here. That's where driven development is written. On what driven? Test-driven development, it's written here. Same thing now, behavioral driven. We have already talked about a lot in the BDD, Cucumber, and all those things. But again, I tell you, again, I repeat the same thing. If it's only your responsibility, only QA is involved in the BDD process or writing the Cucumber test cases or the feature file, then it's not the right use of BDD. So think about, learn about how to use BDD. What do you mean by behavioral driven development? How to write the feature file along with the collaboration with the QA and the PO and the dev. How exactly these three amigos are working together so that they are also defining the behavior. I mean, they are also defining the code and everything on the basis of these behaviors written in the feature file scenarios and everything. And then we are also contributing towards automation using tools like Cucumber and everything. We are using it here. How to perform test automation in the sprints or testing in the sprints, automation reporting, which is the right report, static report or dynamic report. Throughout the execution, I'm getting the report also. That also we can do it. Or after the execution also, it will generate the report like extend report or any static HTML report or maybe Allure report or any kind of third party reports which are there in the market. What are the important things that we have to feed inside the report? A screenshot, logs, and then you are writing n number of steps logs over there. Then you are checking that, okay, what is the priority, severity of each and every test in the report, how many test cases got pass fail in which area, with the screenshot, with the proper logs that you are logging those things, all the information in the report. Then how to generate that, what is the best practice that we have to use it, and which tool is the best fit for my automation framework. Please focus on those things as well here. Then the practice with the automation patterns quickly. So doesn't matter which language that you are using it. Either it is Python, Java, Ruby, C Sharp, or JavaScript or TypeScript or whatever. The design patterns are very, very important here. If you're just writing simple, plain linear code and then repetitive code and then boilerplate code, and then you are not following the right practices, unnecessary code that you are writing it. I see frameworks, people are doing some horrible practices over there. There are no design pattern, there is no SRP model, there is no single responsibility principles that they are following it. So please try to focus so that we can write the clean, neat and clean, and then less noisy code. Plus we are writing the better optimized code here. Your code should be perfectly written in terms of design patterns, like different design patterns like factory pattern, singleton pattern, builder pattern, strategy pattern. Recently I prepared a complete YouTube playlist. You can go and check it over there about the design patterns, about the factory pattern, singleton, builder pattern, strategy pattern, what is the use case, how to use it along with your automation. That also I have explained. Please go, and then it will help you a lot, I'm sure about it. Then the framework architecture. What will be the architecture? Architecture is not about only the folder structure, but in terms of architecture means how exactly you are writing the 10,000 lines of code and then breaking those 10,000 lines of code in different components, right? You are not writing everything in one single component or not writing everything in one single class. So you should know about that, how exactly these things are working, right? In terms of component, what are different integration components that you are writing it, how exactly you're maintaining your test cases. your factories, your configurations, your environments, your test cases, your page objects, your clients, your Excel files, your runners over here, your test data management here, your reporting is here. So this is like overall n number of small components that you're creating it, and all these components are talking and integrated with each other. So these are called the framework designs, framework architecture, that you have to understand that. And once the design is completed, then you should know about that what are the different approaches that I can follow it. Data driven testing approach, or keyword driven, or hybrid frameworks that I can develop or not. And then you have to integrate with the main infrastructure, your CI/CD, and running the test cases on the cloud and everything, running the test cases with the main pipeline. You have to integrate with that. But let's see, five people are working together. If you are not following the right design patterns, it will be very difficult to maintain that framework, guys. After 2 months or after 3 months, it will make your life miserable, because you're not following the patterns properly, you're not following the right coding fundamentals properly over there, and then you're just adding the things on top of that, and nobody is taking care about that in that particular project, in that particular automation framework. Then this framework is not going to help you out. You think about, for a newcomer, that guy will go mad, that what exactly it's written. I'm not able to understand anything. The productivity will be very less. It will take time to understand the things. So better you focus on the design patterns. These are the interview questions also people will ask you. Tell me about the singleton pattern. Tell me about the builder pattern. Give me a use case about of this particular builder pattern in your framework, where exactly you have used it in your framework, in the UI or in the API automation, right? Now, the sixth point is that expand into the last point is that is specialized testing areas like performance testing. If you really want to do something out of the box scenarios, out of the box testing, or you really want to be different from others at a time of interview in your profile, performance testing. Please try to add a flavor of performance testing, load testing, stress testing. How exactly we are doing the performance engineering over here, which tool that we have to use it. And but before that, the basic fundamental of performance and the performance tuning and the engineering. What do you mean by load testing? How to perform that? How exactly we have to create the benchmarking over here? And then how exactly stress testing and the load testing we have to perform, so that tomorrow, functionality wise, it's absolutely working fine. But on the production, with 5,000 users, it's not working properly, then what is the use of that particular functionality? Your application is not able to deliver to your customer. Then functionality is working fine, but not able to handle that particular load or the stress. Then in that case, it's a big business loss. This is what management is also not looking into the performance testing. They just focus only on the functional testing. They just deploy the application. After that, once we get these kind of performance issues in the application, then they think about, then they refactor the entire design and the architecture and everything. That will be costing you more. So better you focus on these specialized non-functional testing also, like performance, load and stress, scalability testing, performance matrices that you should know how to prepare that. Security testing is also very important, right? That is a very specialized testing area that you can focus upon. You should know about that. Okay, what do you mean by OW, or OWASP top 10 security fundamentals which are available? Are these my applications really following these top 10 security concerns or not? Penetration testing, security scanning. Different tools are there which can be integrated with the main CI/CD pipeline, which will, after the build, along with your test automation execution, it will complete scan through security. Also, it will do that through some security tool or something, and then it will generate a report that where exactly the problem in your application, maybe the backend side or the front end side, or the password policies are completely broken, or maybe some other areas, cross site is happening, or SQL injections are happening. So you should know about those security testing fundamentals, and the how to perform the penetration testing here as well. API security, which is like very important. What do you mean by different levels of authorization and the authentication techniques? What do you mean by OAuth 1.0, 2.0, basic auth, primitive auth, digestive auth, API keys, right? These are very important things for the security point of view. You should know about it. What do you mean by bearer token? What do you mean by JWT token? What if your JWT token is compromised? Then your entire APIs are exposed to anyone, and then it will cost you a lot to the business also, you think about that anyone can steal the data or can get the access to your database through the API, or then getting and fetching the data free of cost. What do you mean by limits? What do you mean by limitings of the APIs? You should know about it. So these are the very important things, very specialized testing areas, and number of test cases and good amount of testing you can perform here to improve the quality of the product. Right? And then few additional points here or tips here. Version control. Please master Git for test code management. People are really, really poor in Git. They really don't know how to raise the PR. They really have no idea that what do you mean by code merge conflicts. What if because you think about, let's say you and me working together, I'm your team lead. I say, okay, hey Ravi, please raise this PR, write some test cases, and about that, do this particular component development once it's done. And once your framework, I mean, that particular part is done, please raise a PR. And then you have no idea that how to raise a PR. And when you take the latest pull, also you are getting merge conflicts, and you have no idea that how to resolve those conflicts. What do you mean by branching concept? What do you mean by release process over there? What do you mean by trunk over here? What do you mean by collaboration approaches in the Git? What are different workflows that we have to use it? Because test automation is all about code, and you are not the only guy who is writing the code. You, me, this guy, that guy, my team lead also, architect also, right, senior automation engineer also, we all are working together in the same main code branch, right? So in that case, how exactly you are going to maintain that particular code? You are also writing your code in your Eclipse, I am also writing the code in my Eclipse. So how exactly we are going to merge this entire framework together, and all the test cases, libraries, utilities, everything together? And when you work together, you are writing, let's see, these 5 lines of code, I'm also writing these 5 lines of code. When we merge them together, the conflicts will happen for sure. So once the conflicts are happening, then it is going to impact everyone. So please start to learn about the version control, gits, and everything here. Code review, that I already mentioned, the PR, the pull request, the PR reviews, that you have to use it here. Practice reviewing the test code and accepting the feedback. Try to improve giving the feedback and accepting the feedback also. Don't take it personally that, okay, how many review points in my PR that you are giving to me? It's a good for you. How to write the right variable name, method name for small things. These things matter a lot. In the auditing also, it matters a lot. Some companies, they follow very strict template and the structure for the code review. If it is not according to their template, they will reject your PR over here. So please make sure that, okay, you are following the right practices and learning the right practices for the PR and the code review. Documentation. We are testers, we are QA people. We have to be really good in test documentation and the specifications, guys. If you're not able to write the proper documentation for your framework, for your component, for your test cases, for your libraries, then you are not doing good. So test documentation, very, very important about your test cases. I'm not talking about only manual test cases, but for your automation also, you have to write documentation about your, let's see, the design, the structure, the architecture, how many test cases, mapping, different types of, traceability matrices also you have to prepare over here, that how many test cases we have automated against the manual test cases. Against these are the Zira test cases that we have written. So how many automation chunk that we have written against these 100 test cases, and how many bugs are related with each other, and then bug reporting and everything you have to think about. So all these are part of your documentation here. Then the infrastructure. I love infrastructure because without that, there is no use of your automation. This is just your automation code in your laptop, in your Eclipse or IntelliJ, and that's it. Please try to understand Docker, Kubernetes, different cloud platforms like AWS, Microsoft Azure, GCP, and all. Testing infrastructure, how to set up testing infrastructure plays very important role. Tomorrow, I really want to run my test cases on, let's see, 15 different browsers with different 15 different versions. How will you set up a lab for that? I cannot go to, every time to Lambda test or browser stack every time, right? Because I have to pay dollars to them to use their services. And what if I really want to run my test cases in the parallel mode? Let's see, on Chrome 95, Chrome 96, Chrome 125, Firefox 125, and Firefox 65, and Firefox 70, and Firefox 80, and same thing with Edge browser also. So n number of browsers, and every browser is having different varieties of versions also. Then in that case, how do you set up your lab? Same thing with the mobile automation also, for iOS and Android simulators, emulators, real device, parallel execution, combination of iOS and Android running in the parallel mode. How will you do that? For that, You have to set up a lab. Lab means infrastructure, maybe on the cloud, maybe on a server, maybe on the VM. So for that, you have to use what? Containers, Dockers. You have to create the Docker images for your framework, right? For example, let's see, this is the framework that I have developed. I pull this particular, create this particular image, and I give it to you. And this image, we just pull it and run this with one single command. The entire automation framework will start running in your laptop. You don't need to have Selenium APIs or any other thing. In fact, you don't need to have Eclipse also. Just simple run this command, take this particular image in your laptop, and that's it. This is the power of Docker. So tomorrow I'm designing some code, designing some framework. I can give this particular framework to a manual tester or the code, or or the stakeholders, or to the manager, or maybe to the client and the customer also. They just need to execute one single command, and their entire framework will be running on their system, and then it will generate the report like that. So how to set up those infrastructure with the help of technologies like Docker, Kubernetes, different cloud platforms that you have to use it here. And then you have to involve in some DevOps activities also, the QA DevOps activities also you have to perform over there. So please try to improve your knowledge on the infrastructure. And then the last point is about the debugging. Develop strong debugging and the problem solving skills, guys. Debugging will give you a lot of confidence. With the debugging, you can do anything. You can understand any complex system also if you're debugging layer by layer, component by component, line by line, method by method. If you are checking what is happening, you do one thing. See, I tell you, I what I used to do. I take this particular notebook, and then if I'm working in that particular company which is very new, and then I'm checking their code line by line, and I'm writing each and every point in this particular notebook here, that what exactly people are, I mean, what exactly that particular method is doing. So I'm writing the note here. So this is actually giving me the complete workflow, which variable, which method is doing what. So in that case, please try to improve your debugging skills. It will help you a lot to understand the code, to workflow, to the complete design of the framework also, that which method is doing what, which class is doing what, which component is, what is the purpose of that particular component, right? It will give you a lot of confidence, because first 7 8 days, or maybe 10 days, or maybe sometime 1 month also, it takes time to understand the framework. It's not that, okay, fine, this is just a framework, a big framework, and we have to focus only on that particular area. No, it's not like that. If you really want to add a specific test case also, how exactly, let's see, for example, let's take an example of UI automation, where exactly the browser is getting launched. After that, which method is from the page class is getting called. After that, which method from the test class is getting called. After that, how exactly we are fetching the data from the database, or maybe some Excel file or CSV or anything, which utility is taking care of that. And then after that, what are the different listeners which are running in the background to generate the report and everything. And then after that, how exactly I'm initializing my configuration, my factories and everything. So all these components create a lot of confusion if you are not debugging it properly. Plus, debugging will help you to fix the code also later on. Your manager, sometimes they say, okay, fine, right? The reports are not working. Naveen, you recently joined this particular project. Okay, now do one thing, go for it, and then fix tomorrow, by tomorrow or for next 2 days, please try to fix each and every problem. Whatever, why these 30% test cases are coming in the red color are getting failed. So you have to fix all these 30% test cases into the green color. Then what will you do? What is the best approach? So I'll start debugging it. I'll start looking into the pattern, that how exactly the sequence they are following, and where exactly the problem. And if you know those tricks in the debugging, then it will help you a lot to fix that particular problem, right? So in fact, some people, they follow the debugging things, they don't need any code review. And sometimes we say that, okay, I'm joining this particular company, I'm new to this particular team or company, so can you give me the KT for that about your code? In fact, you don't need that if you are really good in the debugging. Personally, that is, I'm telling you with my experience. They will just give you the basic overview. That's okay. After that, you keep debugging it. And then if you have any questions about the code or anything, then you can talk to the other automation engineers or other developers that, okay, yeah, these are my queries. But if you're going with a very blank statement that, okay, hey, can you please give me the complete overview, and then I'm not getting anything, and each and every line you are expecting that someone will tell you, no, it is not going to help you. Plus, later on, once you are used to with the framework, issues will come. Errors are coming every day. You are facing some problems, errors, exceptions, and then this is not working. Yesterday it was working. This XPath is missing now. This logic is not working now. This feature is deleted now. This feature is updated now in the framework. So you will get to know if you improve the debugging skills with you. So that is very, very important here, right? So these are the simple 5 different additional points here. And remember, focus on creating maintainable, reliable, and efficient test automation frameworks rather than just automating everything possible. Please don't try to run everything. I mean, don't try to automate everything. Quality matters, not quantity. I'm happy if you're automating only 30% of the test cases also if you are automating it, but that 30% is absolutely robust, reliable. Whenever you are running it, is giving me the perfect result. It's doing the proper assertions, telling me how many test cases got pass, fail, and properly. It should not be like today it's working, after 2 days it's not working. It should not be like that moment I deploy the new build, I'm giving you build number 2.0, and your 65 or 70% test cases are not working. Why? Not because of the application, because of your code. Why? Because you're not maintaining your code properly here. So I want to design and I want to focus on a framework which is reliable for future. After 2 3 months also, if I'm adding more and more test cases, there are no much changes that we have to do at the core level. It is reliable, giving me the right results. Otherwise, what is the use of this particular test automation if your test automation is not able to find the problems, is not able to do the proper regression, and then the manual tester is finding those bugs, and in the production we are getting those bugs. You are saying, okay, don't touch these modules because we have already automated that. So obviously a normal tester will not touch that. They are focusing only on the 70% part. 30% you have already automated, for example. Then but in the production they are saying, okay, no, in that particular 30% you are getting the bugs. Then who is responsible for that? Now you are responsible for that, right? Because you have not covered in the automation properly, right? So that's why your automation framework is not reliable. So that is what the wrong automation will create a wrong impression for the automation also. So please make sure that, okay, your automation is efficient also in the execution, so that it's giving the proper results as well, rather than just automating everything possible. No, I don't want to achieve 80%, 90%. It's such a higher number, for example, for the UI automation point of view. But let's see, in API automation, yes, I can achieve that, but not everywhere, not for mobile testing, not for performance testing also sometimes. So quality matters, not the quantity. Later on, you can slowly increase the quantity once your foundation, once the basic skeleton and the foundation is absolutely working fine. On top of that, you can create the buildings and the towers and the stacks over here. So I hope this is clear. You can just go through all these points on my LinkedIn post. Also, you can follow me on the LinkedIn as well. I'll share this particular URL in the description of this particular video. And then if you have your own opinion, you can just write in the comment section of this particular video. What do you think? Other than that, what are different core skills that are really needed? And one last point, that please don't run behind unnecessary things like AI in testing and chat GPT as such. We don't have any very well proven things which are there in the market that is going to help you. Don't waste your time that generating a test case through AI and joining those courses and everything. What is the use of that? It's totally wastage of time, totally the brain blockage completely for you. You're not able to think about your test cases, about the writing the test cases, about the code and everything. Prompt will give you the exact code. You are just copy and pasting it here. You think about after 2 months you have to debug that code as well. Then if you are not aware of it, you have not written any single line of code in that particular framework, then how will you fix the problem and how will you debug the code after that? So please try to understand these basic fundamentals. It will help you a lot, instead of, or rather than just focusing only and dependent on the chat GPT and everything. It is totally brain blockage, I'm telling you. It will just block your brain thinking capability. It will just snatch your human intelligence from you if you're using and too addicted towards these AI tools which are there in the market, right? So I hope this is kind of eye opener video for you to understand and master in test automation in 2025 as well. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching Naveen Automation Labs. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care and God bless you all, guys.